A viral pandemic sweeping the globe, riots taking over America, inequality rising, and you have very little control. I'm Mike, the Psychology Guy, and today we're going to talk about doomscrolling. Doomscrolling. It's a new word for a new phenomenon. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, all with a very simple, very addictive function. Scrolling. A never-ending cycle of news, updates, photos, facts, and for many, even before 2020, anxiety, anger, pessimism, fear, and a loss of control. Now, I'll admit, I am completely guilty of spending night after night, morning after morning, just reading news articles, scrolling through posts. It used to be one of my favourite pastimes. Recently, however, I don't know what I'm looking for. Social media used to be filled with positives and negatives, opinions and new amazing things to discover and explore. It's comparable to watching TV, but where your thoughts and opinions were the star. Recently, however, negative articles are filling our feeds. The more and more you scroll, the more negative opinions you have to consider, the more facts that might not quite be facts that you have to defend yourself against. Now, let's take this example of this Verge article from early in 2020. Uber plans to require its drivers and passengers in the US to wear face coverings. Simple, right? This is unfortunately highly controversial to many people. There are people who believe face coverings shouldn't be necessary. If you're one of these people, then you're going to be looking at this article as problematic. Then there are people who believe that no one should be using an Uber and sharing close proximity with another person. So these people will also be looking at this article as problematic. But it's not just this article. It's the thousands upon thousands of controversial and opinionated articles, often negative, shared by well-meaning friends or family on Facebook, upvoted by the collective mob on Reddit, or retweeted hundreds upon thousands of times on Twitter. And it's severely damaging to our mental health. The more accessible that these doom and gloom articles become, the more likely we are to read them. The more we read them, the more we're thinking about them. The more we think about them, the more they get absorbed into our subconscious. The more rooted they are in our subconscious, the more accessible they are to our working memory, which makes us more likely to read them. This becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of scrolling through article after article. Even social media itself doesn't help us in these situations. The more we read these negative articles, the more will appear, because that's what the algorithms believe we want to see. As we participate more and more in doomscrolling, we create realities for ourselves. Realities that are full of suffering and pain, full of daily setbacks that we have no control over. We go down virtual rabbit holes hoping to find positives and progression, but more often than not we find nothing but despair and suffering. We then build arguments to protect ourselves from this perceived harm, and all it's doing is creating more anxiety and more fear. It's a difficult cycle to break, but we have to stop. We can't just delete these apps from our phones though, that's not really viable. Socially, it's a death sentence in 2020, but while we scroll, we need to remember that these aren't our problems to solve alone. We cannot burden our mental health, which already has so many stresses and strains placed upon it from work, kids, social obligations, and trying to adapt to this fast-paced new environment that very few people were ready for. There are one or two things we can do, however. Limiting our scrolling is a very obvious solution, but it ignores why we turn to social media in the first place. So I'm suggesting podcasts, books, even binge-watching Netflix or YouTube if necessary. But importantly, search out new creators who offer fresh and exciting content with new viewpoints on food or woodworking or other countries. Engage in discussions about our favourite topics. Learn new skills. All these things can be social. Leave comments on YouTube videos, link your favourite podcasts on Twitter, or send your friends and family a book recommendation. Be and share the change that you need, because it's a change we all need. If our social media feeds are going to be filled with doom and gloom, right now what we need to do is create our own worlds to fill the void. Now, I want to end on a positive note, so there are great things happening around the world, collective efforts to help the vulnerable, discussions about institutionalised racism, universal basic income and first world poverty all being thrust back into the media spotlight. For sure, right now, These are problems without solutions. But every solution starts with a discussion. Hey, that was my first video, so if you liked it, give it a like. If you really liked it, maybe hit subscribe for me, that would be fantastic. And I do live script writing Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 11 AM EST. I would love to see you there. Come over, hang out, chat a little bit, and yeah, thanks for watching.